Kalataka's story begins prior to birth. It begins with an announcement to her father, her mother, and eventually to the family of a cousin as well. When Nikki had first left Saturn, it was to find her cousin, Dayani. She and Braden had gone to the foothills, seeking Dayani and Gawaniski, looking for some support from relatives away from home. In many ways, it was a reminder of how unwed teenage girls used to be sent off somewhere to live with an aunt if they got pregnant. They did not find a place to live with Dayani and Gawaniski, but their visit was very much remarkable. Dayani had been hoping for a baby now for years, but pregnancy was not coming according to her time frame and her wishes. Gawaniski had taken her to fertility clinics, but there was seemingly nothing to be done to help them conceive. Then life took an unexpected turn. While Gawaniski was serving in ritual worship, he had a vision in which he was told their desire for parenthood had been heard, and Dayani would conceive after all. This coming child would be a prophet. And they were to name her Kalitaka, guardian of the people. God's grace would flow through the child to change minds throughout the nation and turn people toward God's standards of justice. Gawaniski had balked at such a declaration. Flustered with an unexpected visitor, vision, and message. With his and Dayani's advanced years and history, a baby seemed completely out of the question, much less one on whom God's very breath would rest from birth. For his failure to trust the word given to him, and as a sign of the truth of this promised intervention, Gawaniski learned that he would not be able to speak again until this promise had been fulfilled. Leaving the worship rituals, Gawaniski could not utter a single word. Those present understood through gestures that something strange had happened, and he had received some kind of vision. Silently, Gawaniski returned home to Dayani at the end of his period of service. As the messenger in the vision had announced, she soon became pregnant, despite her age and their former challenges. Dayani hid herself from public view throughout her first 2 trimesters, keeping the matter of her pregnancy to themselves alone. During this time, the seer had come to Nikki and announced her own coming pregnancy. She learned also that Dayani was likewise pregnant, despite her age and childlessness. When the seer's words came true and she found herself in trouble, she determined to flee to Dayani and Gawaniski. As soon as she mentioned this to Braden, he determined to flee with her. They left Saturn for the foothills, escaping many ugly glances, murmurings, and the gossip mill already well underway, even while her pregnancy was barely beginning to show. Over several days, they made their way to Kanawha in search of the couple, seeking the support of knowing someone in a similar situation. They arrived to find Dayani, but were surprised by her greeting. Sure, the seer had told Nikki the child growing within her had been designated by God as special. She and Braden had done their best, however, to keep her pregnancy quiet, even if family had discovered it and they had seen it necessary to leave. Dayani, however, greeted Nikki with completely unexpected words, already knowing more than even that Nikki was pregnant. How is it the mother of our Lord should visit me? Great is your place among women everywhere, and greater still is the life growing in your womb. As soon as I heard your greeting, the one in my womb leapt for joy. Blessed are you to have trusted the word spoken to you, the message of God's promise. Dayani should not have known that Nikki was pregnant, much less that this pregnancy was anything particularly special. Nikki would eventually hear about Gaiwaniski's vision, but he had not spoken at all now for 6 months. That would have interfered with communicating much of anything to Dayani in the interim. His vision had not included a word about Nikki or the child growing within her. Gaiwaniski was supposed to be the priest, but amid his silence, Dayani speaks prophetically. She is the one now announcing to Nikki and Braden more than they had yet been revealed to them, either one of them, regarding their unborn child. The breath of the Holy One had chosen to speak through her, Dayani. Just as God had chosen the rest of this cast of actors from among the unlikeliest of vessels to participate in the transformation of the world. A host could be said regarding the significance of this encounter and the world of promise contained between the wombs of these two women. One young, the other past her prime. Nikki, however, was left as speechless as Gaiwaniski. The implications were much more than a young teenager could process on the spot. Having been able to grasp and process it, though, might have sounded something like the following. How could this be happening to me? I am nothing special. There is nothing about me to make God or anyone else take notice. If anything out of the ordinary is going on here, it is all God's doing and God's intervention. God making something huge out of nothing. I have no breath to speak into the void of my life and surroundings, but somehow God has entered my life in totally unexpected ways. God has taken a poor, plain Jane and granted her grace beyond measure and above imagination. When people look back on the story of my life and see the blessing God has poured out through and on me, they will marvel. They will struggle to grasp it. What God is doing is greater than human comprehension allows. And it tells a story of God unlike any other. I am nothing. Yet God showers great mercy on those with a simple degree of reverence. Not in my generation alone, but in every generation. God's unsurpassed strength has been revealed even in me and in my impotence and unimportance. Rather than coddling the so-called proud and mighty, God has brushed them aside with their self-importance. God's attention has not been showered on those sitting on thrones of wealth and power, but upon one such as I. One with absolutely no status at all to claim. It is the lowliest whom God raises up. It is the hungry that God feeds, filling them with good things at the expense of those greedy for wealth and power. Israel, a people who struggle with God, is aided through God's grace. As a reminder of God's great mercy we could never earn. All this is based merely upon the promise that God made generations ago to the one we claim as the Father of all who trust God. Gawaniski and Diani offered Nikki and Braden hospitality, but they could not remain there long. They needed to move on to begin their life together, even as Diani prepared to give birth and prepare for the journey of motherhood ahead of her. Braden took Nikki in the direction of Chickasaw, looking to establish themselves there prior to the coming of their own child, of which so much had just been spoken, on whom so much expectation lay. One day, all that expectation was very real to them. On the next, however, the pressures of establishing themselves and a sense of family in preparing for their child's arrival pushed all of that aside. Whatever was going on in Nikki's womb came second to the growing discomforts of walking and performing tasks of daily living and survival. The definition of this child being exceedingly special came second to finding food, work, shelter. Worries over Nikki's health and welfare took front seat to who the child would turn out to be at some point in what seemed a distant future. After all, it's hard to attend constantly to something that is not yet. How do we live into what we do not yet? I invite you to turn to